The daily battlefield, the glass doors of Pierce and Associates swung open every morning at exactly 8:30. And by 8:05, the entire 15th floor knew that Natalie Harper and Ryan Castellano were already at each other's throats. Their voices carried through the modern open-plan office like competing radio stations, each trying to drown out the other. "Your strategy is outdated," Natalie declared. Standing at the head of the conference table with her arms crossed, her red blazer matched the fire in her eyes as she stared down Ryan across the polished mahogany surface. At 29, she was the youngest creative director Pierce & Associates had ever hired, and she had not climbed that ladder by being quiet. Ryan leaned back in his leather chair, his dark eyes never leaving hers. "Outdated? My campaigns have brought in 40% of this agency's revenue over the past 18 months. What have your creative visions brought us besides expensive photo shoots and abstract concepts that clients do not understand?" The rivalry that defined them, Natalie felt her jaw tighten. This was typical Ryan Castellano behavior. Always bringing up numbers, always reducing art to statistics. Always making her feel like creativity was somehow less valuable than his precious client relationships. Those abstract concepts won us 3 industry awards last year, awards that put Pierce & Associates on the map for innovative thinking. Awards do not pay the bills, Harper. Ryan stood up, matching her stance. His 6-foot frame towered over the table, but Natalie refused to be intimidated. She had dealt with men like him her entire career, men who thought their presence alone commanded authority. "Revenue without reputation is just money, Castellano. And reputation is what brings in the big clients, the ones who want to be associated with excellence, not just competent mediocrity." The other team members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Jennifer from accounting pretended to study her laptop screen. Tom from media buying suddenly found his coffee cup fascinating. They had all witnessed these battles before. Some days the arguments were about campaign strategies. Other days they fought over meeting schedules or office resources. It did not matter what the topic was. Natalie Harper and Ryan Castellano would find a way to turn it into a war zone. The promotion that started everything what nobody talked about openly was the real reason behind their constant conflict. 3 months ago, Gregory Pierce, the agency's founder, had announced his intention to retire. He was creating a new position, Vice President of Integrated Strategy. Someone who would oversee both creative development and client relations. The role would essentially make that person second in command of the entire agency. Everyone knew there were only 2 real candidates: Natalie Harper, whose creative vision had transformed the agency's portfolio, and Ryan Castellano, whose client relationships had kept the money flowing even during economic downturns. The decision would be announced in 2 weeks. The tension had become unbearable. Natalie wanted that promotion more than she had wanted anything in her professional life. She had spent 5 years proving herself in an industry that still treated women as novelties rather than equals. She had worked weekends, skipped vacations, and sacrificed relationships to get where she was. This promotion was not just a career move. It was validation. Ryan needed that promotion for different reasons. As the son of Italian immigrants who had worked factory jobs their entire lives, he carried the weight of being the first Castellano to attend college, let alone build a successful career. His parents had sacrificed everything to give him opportunities they never had. Every success he achieved was a tribute to their struggles. Losing this promotion would feel like letting them down. The impossible assignment, enough. Gregory Pierce's voice cut through their argument like a knife. The 70-year-old founder stood at the conference room door, his silver hair perfectly combed, his expression tired. "My office. Both of you. Now." Natalie and Ryan exchanged glances before following Gregory down the hallway. His corner office overlooked Manhattan's skyline, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view that usually inspired confidence. Today, it felt like walking into a principal's office. Gregory sat behind his massive desk and gestured for them to take the chairs across from him. "I am going to be direct because clearly subtlety has not worked with you two. Your constant fighting is disrupting the entire agency. Talented as you both are, I cannot have my leadership team at war with each other. Gregory, I apologize if my passion for excellence comes across as conflict, Natalie started. But he held up his hand. Save it, Natalie. And you too, Ryan. I can see the excuse forming on your face. Gregory pulled out a folder from his drawer. Hamilton Luxury Motors is considering moving their entire account to us. We are talking about a $50 million annual contract. They want to see a comprehensive campaign proposal by Monday morning. Natalie's eyes widened. Hamilton Luxury Motors was one of the biggest automotive brands in the country. Landing them would be massive for the agency. Here's what is going to happen, Gregory continued. The two of you are going to create this proposal together, not separately, not divided into creative and client services. Together, one unified vision that showcases both creative brilliance and strategic client management. Gregory. With all due respect, Ryan began, but the older man cut him off. This is not a request. It is a test. If you two cannot work together on this, then neither of you is ready for the vice president position. I need a leader who can bridge creative and client services, someone who understands both sides of our business. Prove to me that you can collaborate, or I will look elsewhere for my replacement. The weight of his words settled over them like a heavy blanket. Natalie felt her stomach drop. Collaborate with Ryan Castellano, the man who had undermined her ideas at every opportunity, the man who represented everything she fought against in the advertising world. But looking at Gregory's serious expression, she knew there was no choice. Fine, she said quietly. We will make it work. Ryan nodded, though his jaw was clenched tight. We will deliver the best proposal Hamilton has ever seen. Good. You have the office to yourselves this weekend. The building will be quiet, so you can focus without distractions. I expect something extraordinary on Monday. Gregory stood, signaling the meeting was over. And please, try not to kill each other before then. The storm approaches Friday evening arrived with dark clouds rolling over Manhattan. The weather forecast had been warning about a major thunderstorm all week. The kind that turned city streets into rivers and made taxi rides impossible. Most of the Pierce & Associates staff had left early. Eager to get home before the worst of it hit, Natalie sat in the large conference room they had claimed for the weekend. Surrounded by mood boards, fabric samples, and printouts of competitor campaigns. She had changed from her work clothes into jeans and a comfortable sweater, knowing this was going to be a long night. Her laptop was open to 3 different design programs, and her second monitor displayed demographic data for Hamilton's target market. Ryan arrived at 6. Carrying his leather briefcase and 2 cups of coffee, he had also changed into more casual clothes. Dark jeans and a fitted black polo that Natalie tried very hard not to notice looked good on him. She hated that she noticed. Peace offering, he said, setting one of the cups in front of her. Vanilla latte, extra shot, no sugar. That is what you always order from the coffee cart downstairs. Natalie looked up, surprised. You know my coffee order? We have worked in the same office for 2 years, Harper. I pay attention. He sat down across from her, pulling out his own laptop. Listen, I know we have our differences, but we both want this account. Can we call a truce for the weekend? Just focus on creating something great. She studied his face, looking for signs of sarcasm or hidden agendas. But Ryan looked sincere, tired even. The bags under his eyes suggested he had been losing sleep over this project too. Truce, she agreed, taking a sip of the coffee. It was perfect, exactly how she liked it. But if you criticize my concepts without offering constructive alternatives, the truce is off. And if you dismiss my strategic concerns without considering the client perspective, same deal. They shook hands across the table. And Natalie felt a strange flutter in her stomach that she immediately pushed away. This was Ryan Castellano, her rival, her opposite in every way. That flutter was probably just hunger. The first few hours passed in productive silence. They divided the initial research, Natalie focusing on creative concepts, while Ryan built out the strategic framework. Around 8:30, the storm hit with full force. Rain lashed against the windows, and thunder rolled across the city loud enough to make the glass rattle. This is getting bad, Ryan commented, looking out at the darkening sky. Lightning flashed, illuminating his face in stark white light. Maybe we should call it a night and continue tomorrow. We need to make progress tonight. Tomorrow we have to start building the actual presentation. Natalie saved her work and stretched. But I could use some food. There is a deli 2 blocks over that stays open late. Want to split a sandwich run? In this storm, we will get soaked. There is an umbrella in the supply closet. We are both adults. We can handle a little rain. Ryan smiled, and it transformed his usually serious face into something warmer. All right, Harper. Let us brave the elements together. Trapped, they took the elevator down from the 15th floor, sharing the umbrella space in comfortable silence. But as they passed the 10th floor, the elevator jerked violently. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went completely dark. The elevator stopped moving with a mechanical groan that sounded expensive and final. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in an eerie red glow. What just happened? Natalie grabbed the handrail, her heart suddenly racing. Ryan was already pressing the emergency call button, but nothing happened. No response, no dial tone, nothing. He tried his cell phone, but the screen showed no signal. I think the storm took out the power. We must be running on backup generators, but the elevator safety systems shut everything down. Can you get us out? Natalie heard the panic creeping into her voice and hated it. Ryan examined the control panel, pressing various buttons. Nothing worked. He tried prying open the doors, but they would not budge. We are stuck. Completely stuck. Natalie pulled out her own phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi, nothing. Someone will notice, right? The building has security. It's on weekends they do rounds every few hours. And with the storm this bad, they might not even be in the building. Ryan sat down on the elevator floor, running his hands through his dark hair. We might be here a while. Define a while. Natalie remained standing, her arms wrapped around herself. The emergency lighting made everything feel like a horror movie. Hours. Maybe until morning if the power does not come back on. Hours. I cannot be trapped in an elevator for hours. Especially not with you. Ryan looked up at her, his expression hard to read in the red light. Trust me, Harper. This was not on my ideal Friday night agenda either. But we do not have a choice. So, you can either stand there panicking, or you can sit down, and we can figure out how to pass the time. Natalie wanted to argue, wanted to find a way out through sheer force of will. But looking at the immovable doors and the dead control panel, she realized he was right. They were trapped. Together. For who knew how long. She slid down the wall and sat opposite him, their feet almost touching in the small space. This is going to be a long night, she muttered. Probably the longest night of our lives, Ryan agreed. Neither of them knew yet just how right they were, or how completely everything was about to change. The first hour. Blame and frustration, the emergency lighting cast long shadows across Ryan's face as he checked his phone for the 100th time. Still no signal. The storm outside had intensified, thunder shaking the building's foundation with each rolling boom. Natalie hugged her knees to her chest, trying to control the rising panic in her throat. This is your fault, she said suddenly, breaking the tense silence. Ryan looked up from his phone, eyebrows raised. My fault? How exactly did I cause a citywide power outage? If you had not suggested we work late, we would be home right now. Safe. Not trapped in a metal box suspended between floors. Ellie knew she was being irrational. But fear made people say stupid things. I suggested we work late? You were the one who said we needed to make progress tonight. I wanted to wait until tomorrow, remember? Ryan's voice remained calm, which somehow made Natalie even more irritated. Well, if you had not insisted we shake hands on that ridiculous truce, I would not have relaxed my guard. I would have left when my instincts told me to. Your instincts told you to leave because of a handshake. That is the most paranoid thing I have ever heard. Ryan leaned his head back against the elevator wall. Look, we can spend the next however many hours blaming each other. Or we can accept that this is nobody's fault and try to make the best of a bad situation. Natalie wanted to keep arguing, but the exhaustion in his voice stopped her. They were both scared, both frustrated, both completely powerless. Fighting would not change anything. Fine, she said quietly. No more blame. But the first reserve the right to complain about the situation in general. Complaining is allowed. Accusations are not. Deal. Deal. They sat in silence for another 20 minutes, listening to the storm rage outside. The elevator creaked occasionally, small sounds that made Natalie's heart jump every time. She tried not to think about how high up they were, how small the space was, how many things could go wrong. Tell me something, Ryan said suddenly. Why did you really come to Pierce & Associates? You had that amazing position at the creative agency in Chicago. Why leave that for New York? Natalie was surprised by the question. In 2 years of working together, Ryan had never asked her anything personal. How did you know about Chicago? I read your portfolio when Gregory was considering hiring you. I was on the selection committee. He smiled slightly. I voted against bringing you on, by the way. Of course you did. Not because I did not think you were talented. Your work was incredible. I voted against it because I knew you would threaten my position here. I was right about that, at least. The honesty caught Natalie off guard. I left Chicago because everyone there knew me as David Harper's daughter. My father is a creative director at the biggest agency in the Midwest. Every campaign I led, every award I won, people whispered that it was because of his connections. I needed to prove myself somewhere where the Harper name meant nothing. Ryan nodded slowly. That must have been hard. Walking away from success to start over. It was terrifying. But it was necessary. Natalie looked at him in the dim red light. What about you? Why advertising? You have an MBA from Columbia? You could have gone into finance, consulting, made twice the money. My parents did not sacrifice everything so I could spend my life making rich people richer. Ryan's voice carried a weight that Natalie had never heard before. My father worked in a packaging factory for 30 years. My mother cleaned offices at night while raising 3 kids during the day. They never complained, never asked for anything, except that we do better than they did. You have siblings? 2 younger sisters. Both in college now, thanks to scholarships and the money I send home every month. He smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. Advertising felt like something that mattered. Creating messages that connect with people, helping businesses grow. It felt purposeful. My father still does not really understand what I do, but he is proud that I wear a suit to work instead of factory overalls. Natalie felt something shift inside her chest. For 2 years, she had seen Ryan as nothing but an obstacle. A corporate climber who cared only about numbers and client satisfaction. She had never considered that he might have his own struggles, his own reasons for fighting so hard. The 3rd hour, walls coming down, I am sorry, Natalie said softly. For what? For assuming you were just another ambitious man trying to take credit for other people's work, for not trying to understand where you were coming from. She pulled her sweater tighter around herself. The elevator was getting colder as the backup power struggled to maintain basic systems. I have spent so much time fighting against being dismissed because I am a woman that I started dismissing men before they could dismiss me. Ryan was quiet for a moment. I am sorry too. For treating your creative vision as if it was less important than client relations. The truth is, your work intimidates me. You see possibilities I would never think of. You take risks I am too careful to take. That scares me because it highlights my limitations. Your limitations? Ryan, you built relationships with clients that I could never manage. You understand people in ways I do not. You make them feel heard and valued. That is not a limitation. That is a gift. They looked at each other across the small elevator space, really seeing each other for the first time. Not as rivals or obstacles, but as 2 people who had been so focused on competing that they had missed the possibility of complementing each other. Can I tell you something I have never told anyone at work? Natalie asked. We are trapped in an elevator during a storm. I think normal rules do not apply. She laughed, surprised by how good it felt. I have panic attacks. Not often, but sometimes when the pressure gets really intense. I lock myself in the bathroom and count to 100 until I can breathe normally again. Is that why you were late to the Riverside Automotive pitch last year? Natalie nodded. I was so afraid of failing in front of everyone, of proving that maybe I did not belong in that room after all. For what it is worth, That pitch was brilliant. You won us a $5 million account with a presentation that made grown men cry about their first cars. Ryan leaned forward slightly. You belong in every room you walk into, Natalie, even the ones I am in. The use of her first name sent a small shock through her system. He had always called her Harper, keeping that professional distance. Hearing him say Natalie felt intimate, personal. What about you? She asked. What is your secret? Ryan hesitated, his fingers drumming against his knee. I am terrified of failing my family. Every decision I make, every client I pursue, every late night I work, it is all because I cannot stand the thought of my parents thinking their sacrifices were wasted on me. Sometimes the pressure of that is crushing. Is that why you work 70-hour weeks? Why you never take vacation? I took a vacation once, 3 years ago. Went to visit my grandmother in Sicily. I spent the entire week checking emails and calling clients. When I got back, I had an ulcer. He smiled ruefully. The doctor told me I needed to learn to relax. I told him I would relax after I made VP. And after you make VP? What then? I had not really thought that far ahead. Ryan looked at her curiously. What about you? Let us say you get the promotion. What happens next? Natalie opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. She had spent so long focused on the goal that she had never considered what came after. I do not know. I suppose I thought the promotion would feel like arriving somewhere, like finally proving I belonged. But sitting here, talking to you, I am realizing that no promotion is going to fix the voice in my head that says I am not good enough. That is something I have to fix myself. The 5th hour. Vulnerability and truth. The storm outside had settled into a steady rain. The thunder moving off into the distance. Inside the elevator, something else was building. A different kind of storm. One made of honesty and years of suppressed feelings. They had been talking for hours now. Sharing stories from their childhoods, their college years, their early career struggles. Ryan told her about the time he pitched to a major client while battling food poisoning, refused to show weakness, and threw up immediately after winning the account. Natalie confessed that she had cried in her car after their first big argument, not because he had hurt her feelings, but because she respected his opinion more than she wanted to admit. Why do we fight so much? Natalie asked as they shared the protein bar she had found in her purse. It was their only food, split carefully down the middle. I think we fight because the alternative is too scary. What alternative? Ryan met her eyes in the red emergency lighting. Admitting that we work better together than we do apart. Admitting that maybe our constant competition is just a way to avoid dealing with the real tension between us. Natalie's heart started beating faster. What real tension? Come on, Natalie. We are both smart people. You have never wondered why our arguments feel different than normal professional disagreements. Why the air changes when we are in the same room. She had wondered. Late at night, alone in her apartment, she had wondered why Ryan Castellano could make her angrier than anyone else. Why his approval mattered more than it should. Why she noticed things like how he drank his coffee, or the way he loosened his tie when he was stressed. I thought I hated you, she whispered. I thought I hated you too. Ryan moved slightly closer. Close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. But hate does not explain why I know your coffee order. Or why I always position myself where I can see you during meetings. Or why losing you to another agency would bother me more than losing any client ever could. Ryan, we work together. This is complicated. Everything worth having is complicated. His voice was soft, but intense. I am not saying we should ignore the professional implications. I am saying that maybe we should stop ignoring what has been obvious to everyone but us. What has been obvious? That we challenge each other. That we make each other better. That all this fighting has been foreplay disguised as professional rivalry. Natalie laughed, the sound echoing in the small space. Foreplay? That is quite an assumption, Castellano. Then tell me I am wrong. Tell me you have never thought about what it would be like if we stopped fighting and started actually working together. Tell me you have never wondered what we could create if we combined your vision with my strategy. She could not tell him he was wrong because he was not. The truth was, she had thought about it. more than she wanted to admit. In quiet moments between battles, she had imagined what Pierce and Associates could become if she and Ryan were partners instead of rivals. "What about the promotion?" she asked. "If we are together, people will say whoever gets it did not deserve it. Then maybe we should create a different option." "What do you mean?" Ryan pulled out his phone, using the screen light to illuminate his face. "What if we tell Gregory we want to share the position? Co-vice presidents. Equal authority, equal responsibility, equal credit. Share the position." I have never heard of that. Neither have I. But we have also never been trapped in an elevator long enough to realize that we do not have to keep competing. We could build something together. Something neither of us could build alone. Natalie thought about it. Her entire career had been about proving she could succeed independently, that she did not need anyone else. But maybe that was pride talking. Maybe real strength was knowing when partnership made you better. "If we do this," she said slowly, "we do it right. No hidden agendas. No competing for credit. Full transparency and equal respect."
Agreed.
"And we date. We are not doing this halfway, Natalie. Either we commit to being partners in both business and life, or we go back to fighting and pretend this conversation never happened." Ryan reached out, his hand hovering near hers. "I vote for commitment." Natalie looked at his hand, suspended in the space between them. This was a moment that would change everything. They could not go back after this. Could not return to the safe hostility that had defined their relationship. She took his hand. "Commitment," she agreed. Ryan pulled her closer, and in that moment, the emergency lights seemed brighter. He cupped her face with his free hand, his thumb brushing her cheek. "I am going to kiss you now. If you have any objections, say so immediately." "No objections." Their lips met softly at first, tentative and exploratory, then deeper. 2 years of tension and denied attraction, finally finding release. Natalie felt like she was falling and flying at the same time, her hands tangling in his hair, his arms wrapping around her waist. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ryan laughed. "We should have gotten stuck in an elevator months ago. We should have stopped being idiots months ago," Natalie corrected. But she was smiling. They spent the next hour talking through what their partnership would look like, both professionally and personally. They set boundaries, discussed expectations, planned how to approach Gregory with their proposal. It felt right, natural, like 2 puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. The 7th hour. Planning the future. "What will people say?" Natalie asked, leaning against Ryan's shoulder. They had moved to sit side by side, sharing body heat as the elevator grew colder. "People will say whatever they want. They've been talking about us for 2 years anyway." Ryan wrapped his arm around her. "At least now they will have something interesting to talk about. Your sisters are going to love this story. My mother is going to claim she knew all along. She asked me once why I talked about you so much, if I hated you." He kissed the top of her head. "Turns out mothers know things." Natalie smiled against his chest. "My father is going to give you the protective dad speech. Just warning you now, and I look forward to it. I want to meet the man who raised someone as incredible as you." They talked about introducing each other to their families, about what their first real date would be like, about how to navigate office politics once everyone knew about their relationship. They made plans and dreamed dreams. To people who had spent so long fighting that partnership felt like a revelation. "Natalie, yes. Thank you for being trapped in an elevator with me." She laughed. "Thank you for not being insufferable about it." "I am always a little insufferable." "True. But I think I might like that about you now." As the 8th hour approached, they heard voices outside the elevator. Rescue had finally arrived. The sound of metal grinding against metal echoed through the elevator shaft. Natalie and Ryan stood up quickly, moving away from each other instinctively before remembering they did not have to hide anymore. Ryan grabbed her hand and she squeezed back, both of them facing the doors together. "Hello? Is anyone in there?" A male voice called from outside. "Yes, 2 of us." Ryan shouted back. "We have been stuck since around 8:30. Tight. We are going to get you out." The elevator stopped between floors 9 and 10. We need to manually open the doors. More grinding sounds. Then a sliver of light appeared between the elevator doors. 2 firefighters in full gear worked to pry them open wider, revealing a wall of concrete just a few feet above the elevator ceiling. They were indeed stuck between floors. "All right, folks, we are going to need you to climb up and out. It is about a 4-foot drop to the 9th floor. Can you manage that?" "Yes," Natalie and Ryan said together. The firefighters secured a ladder and helped Natalie up first. Strong hands pulled her through the opening and onto solid ground. She had never been so happy to feel carpet under her feet. Ryan followed moments later and immediately put his arm around her waist. The firefighter who had helped them noticed the gesture and smiled. "Long night?" "You have no idea," Ryan replied. They were led down 9 flights of stairs, since the elevators were still not operational. The Pierce & Associates office was dark and empty. Their conference room materials still spread across the table exactly as they had left them. It felt like entering a time capsule from a different life.
What time is it?"
Natalie asked, checking her phone. The signal had returned the moment they left the elevator shaft. 4:30 in the morning, Ryan answered, looking at his own phone. "We were in there for almost 8 hours. 8 hours that had changed everything." The morning after they gathered their belongings in silence, both processing what had happened, the storm had passed, leaving the city washed clean and quiet in the pre-dawn darkness. Through the windows, they could see the first hints of light on the horizon. "Come home with me," Ryan said suddenly. "Not for anything other than I do not want this night to end with us going to separate apartments." In questioning whether any of this was real, Natalie nodded. "I was thinking the same thing." Ryan's apartment was in Chelsea, a renovated brownstone walk-up that surprised her with its warmth. She had expected something sleek and modern, but instead found exposed brick walls, comfortable furniture, and family photos everywhere. His mother and father smiling from their small garden. His sisters in graduation gowns. His grandmother in Sicily, arms outstretched in welcome. "This is not what I expected," Natalie said, studying a photo of young Ryan in a Little League uniform. "What did you expect?" "Something colder, more corporate." She turned to face him. "This is a home, a real home. Spent enough time being corporate at work. Here, I get to be just me." He moved closer, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You can be just you here, too." They talked until sunrise, curled up on his couch with blankets and the coffee Ryan made in his tiny kitchen. They talked about the Hamilton proposal, about how to approach Gregory on Monday, about what their first project as partners would be. But mostly they talked about the small things. Favorite movies and childhood pets, and the way they both ate. Pizza crust first. When Natalie finally fell asleep around 7 in the morning, her head on Ryan's shoulder, she dreamed of presentations where nobody argued, of campaigns that combined vision and strategy seamlessly, of a future that felt possible for the first time in years. Monday. Morning. The big reveal Monday arrived with nervous energy and careful planning. Natalie and Ryan had spent the rest of the weekend finishing the Hamilton proposal and rehearsing how to present their partnership idea to Gregory. They arrived at the office separately, maintaining the appearance of normalcy even though everything had changed. Gregory, Pierce called them into his office at 9 sharp. He looked tired, the weekend storm having caused problems throughout the building. But his eyes were sharp as he studied both of them. "I trust you to survive being trapped together," he asked with a slight smile. "We did more than survive," Natalie said, glancing at Ryan. "We realized something important." Ryan leaned forward. "That we have been approaching this promotion wrong. We have been competing when we should have been collaborating. Our skills complement each other perfectly, but we have been too stubborn to see it." "Go on," Gregory said, interest clear in his voice. Natalie pulled out the Hamilton proposal. "This campaign showcases what we can do together. Creative vision backed by strategic implementation. Client relationships enhanced by innovative thinking. We built something this weekend that neither of us could have created alone." She walked Gregory through the presentation, and Ryan provided context and strategic reasoning for each element. They moved like dancers, each knowing exactly when to step forward and when to support. The proposal was brilliant, combining Natalie's emotional storytelling with Ryan's data-driven approach in ways that made each element stronger. When they finished, Gregory sat back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "This is extraordinary work. Hamilton is going to love this. But you did not come here just to show me a good campaign, did you?" "No," Ryan admitted. "We came to propose something unusual. We want to share the vice president position," Natalie said directly. "Co-vice presidents with equal authority and responsibility. We think Pierce and Associates would benefit from unified leadership that bridges creative and client services." "That is unprecedented," Gregory said, but he did not sound dismissive. "How would decision-making work? Who gets final say?" "We would make major decisions together," Ryan explained. "Consensus-based leadership. If we cannot agree, we bring it to you for mediation. But we think our different perspectives will lead to better decisions, not gridlock." Gregory studied them both carefully. "Is there something else I should know about? Some reason you two suddenly believe you can work together after 2 years of warfare?" Natalie and Ryan exchanged glances. They had debated whether to mention the personal aspect of their relationship. Ultimately, they had decided on honesty. "We are also dating," Natalie said simply. "As of Friday night, we know it is complicated, and we are committed to maintaining professionalism. But we wanted you to know the full picture." Gregory was quiet for a long moment. Then he started laughing. "I knew it. I told Margaret in HR that you two had chemistry. She said I was crazy, but I knew it." He stood up, walking to his window. "Young people always think they invented romance in the workplace. I met my wife here, you know? She was my secretary back when that was still an acceptable term. We argued constantly about filing systems and meeting schedules." "Really?" Natalie said, surprised. "Really? Been married 42 years now. Still argue about filing systems." He turned back to face them. "Here is what I am going to do. I am giving you both the position, co-vice presidents as you suggested, 3-month trial period to prove the model works. If I see any sign that your personal relationship is interfering with business, we revisit the arrangement." "Understood?" "Understood," they said in unison. "And one more thing." Gregory's expression turned serious. "I am not giving you this because I think you will fail. I am giving you this because watching you to fight over the years, I realized you were really fighting yourselves. You each had something the other needed, but neither of you was humble enough to ask for help. If you have finally figured that out, then you are exactly the leadership this agency needs." 3 months later, the new normal. Conference room buzzed with excitement as the entire Pierce and Associates team gathered for the Monday morning meeting. On the screen at the front of the room, the Hamilton Luxury Motors logo gleamed above a news headline, "Automotive Giant Credits, Award-Winning Campaign for Record Sales." Natalie stood at the front of the room, Ryan beside her. They had been co-vice presidents for 3 months now, and the arrangement had exceeded everyone's expectations. Projects that used to take weeks of arguments now moved smoothly through development. Creative ideas were automatically paired with strategic implementation. Client relationships deepened as creative vision gave them more to sell. "Before we dive into this week's projects," Ryan said to the assembled team, "Natalie and I wanted to share some news." "Hamilton Luxury Motors has signed a 3-year extension with us," Natalie announced, "and they are referring to other automotive brands to the agency based on the campaign results." The room erupted in applause. It was the biggest win in Pierce and Associates history, and everyone knew it would not have happened without the unlikely partnership between the creative director and the account manager who used to hate each other. After the meeting, Natalie and Ryan returned to their shared office. Gregory had knocked down a wall between their old separate spaces, creating one large office with 2 desks facing each other. It was both practical and symbolic. "Lunch?" Ryan asked, grabbing his jacket. "As always," Natalie replied. They had a standing lunch date every day, an hour where they stepped away from work and focused on their relationship. It was a boundary they had set early on, a way to ensure their personal connection did not get lost in professional responsibilities as they walked to their favorite deli. Hands linked, Natalie thought about that stormy Friday night 3 months ago. 8 hours trapped in an elevator had felt like a nightmare at the time, Now it felt like the best thing that ever happened to her. "What are you smiling about?" Ryan asked, noticing her expression. "Just thinking about how much can change in 8 hours. Everything can change in 8 hours." He pulled her closer. Everything important. They had stopped arguing every day at work. Instead, they collaborated every day, challenged each other every day, supported each other every day. The transformation had been so complete that new employees did not believe the stories about their legendary battles. But Natalie and Ryan remembered. They remembered every argument, every insult, every moment of stubborn pride that had kept them apart. They remembered because it made their partnership now that much sweeter. 6 months later, Full Circle Gregory Pierce stood at the front of the agency's largest conference room, preparing to make an announcement everyone had been anticipating. The entire staff was present, along with several major clients and industry reporters. It was the agency's annual celebration, but this year felt different. "Before I begin," Gregory said, his voice carrying easily through the room, "I want to tell you a story about two of the most talented people I have ever worked with. Two people who spent years making each other miserable because they were too proud to admit they were better together than apart." Natalie felt Ryan squeeze her hand under the table. 6 months ago, I forced these two people to work together on a crucial campaign. I thought maybe if they spent enough time collaborating, they would stop fighting." Oh, Gregory smiled. "I had no idea they would get trapped in an elevator during a storm and figure everything out in 8 hours. Laughter rippled through the room. The story of the elevator had become agency legend. Today, I am proud to announce that Natalie Harper and Ryan Castellano are being promoted from co-vice presidents to co-presidents of Pierce and Associates. I will remain as chairman, but the daily operations of this agency will be in their very capable hands." The applause was thunderous. Colleagues stood, clients cheered, and Natalie felt tears streaming down her face as she and Ryan rose to accept the recognition. "Thank you," Natalie said when the noise died down. "This honor means everything to us. But more than that, thank you for believing that two people who argued constantly could learn to build something beautiful together. We proved that conflict can become collaboration," Ryan added. "That competition can become partnership. And that sometimes the person you think is your enemy is actually your perfect complement." They looked at each other, and in that moment, surrounded by the agency, they would now lead together. Natalie remembered that terrifying night in the elevator, the panic, the forced vulnerability, the slow realization that everything she thought she knew about Ryan Castellano was wrong. She remembered the exact moment she stopped fighting and started listening. The moment walls came down and possibilities opened up. The moment 8 hours in an elevator transformed into a lifetime of partnership. "Two new beginnings," Ryan whispered, raising his glass. "Two new beginnings," Natalie echoed, clinking her glass against his, and everyone in the room drank to that. To the impossible partnership that worked. To the rivals who became lovers. To proof that sometimes the best things in life happen when you are trapped in an elevator with exactly the right person. As the celebration continued around them, Natalie leaned close to Ryan. "You know what is funny? What? If someone told me 2 years ago that you would be my business partner and the love of my life, I would have laughed in their face. Someone told me 2 years ago that I would be happy sharing a promotion instead of winning it outright, I would have called them crazy." Ryan kissed her forehead. "But here we are, Natalie agreed. "And I would not change a single argument, a single fight, a single moment of that journey. Not even the elevator. Especially not the elevator, because that storm. Those 8 impossible hours had given them something more valuable than any promotion or success. It had given them each other, and a partnership built on respect, trust, and the understanding that being vulnerable enough to stop fighting was the bravest thing either of them had ever done. The agency thrived under their leadership. Their relationship deepened into something solid and lasting. And whenever young employees asked how they made their partnership work, both personal and professional, Natalie and Ryan would smile and say the same thing. "We learned to stop arguing and start listening. We learned that being right matters less than being effective. We learned that the person challenging you might not be your enemy, but your greatest teacher." And, Ryan would always add with a grin, We learned that getting stuck in an elevator during a thunderstorm can be the best thing that ever happens to you. Years later, when they told their story to new employees, to industry magazines, to anyone who asked how two rivals became the most successful partnership in advertising history, they always came back to the same truth. The best things in life happen when you stop fighting what you're afraid of and start embracing what you need. Sometimes that happens in a boardroom, sometimes in a moment of triumph, and sometimes it happens in an elevator, suspended between floors. When you have nowhere to run and nothing to do but finally be honest, they argued every day at work until 8. Hours trapped in an elevator changed everything. And in changing everything, it gave them exactly what they had been fighting for all along without knowing it. A true partner, a genuine love, and a future built together.